When I built the porch on my home, I never thought it would become the battleground for one of the ugliest fights with my HOA. The porch wasn't just wooden nails, it was where my wife and I enjoyed our morning coffee, where our kids spread out their toys, and where our family gathered on quiet evenings. To us, it was a piece of comfort. To the HOA, however, it was a target. It all started one Tuesday morning when I received a bright orange violation notice taped to my door. Bold letters screamed across the page, "Illegal construction, remove immediately." My stomach turned. Illegal? The porch had been built by a licensed contractor, with every permit signed and approved by the city. I even had the documentation neatly filed in my cabinet. That night, I attended the HOA meeting, still clutching the violation slip. The president of the HOA, a smug man named Greg, leaned back in his chair with his arms crossed as though he'd already won. "Your porch," he said loudly enough for the entire room to hear, "is not compliant with community standards. It needs to come down within 30 days, or you'll face fines." I took a breath, steadying my voice. That porch was approved by the city. I have permits, signed off by the building inspector. Are you saying the HOA has more authority than City Hall? The room murmured, and Greg's smirk faltered for a split second. But he quickly recovered. This neighborhood has rules. And rules mean everyone plays fair. My wife squeezed my hand. I could tell she was trying to stop me from saying more, but I wasn't about to back down. Fair? I repeated. What's fair about harassing homeowners for something that's completely legal? My porch is staying. Greg's face darkened, and he slammed his folder shut. Then you'll be fined every single day until you comply. We'll see how long you can afford your little act of defiance. Over the next 2 weeks, the fines started rolling in. First $50 a day, then $100. By the end of the month, they claimed I owed over $3,000. Every time I checked my mailbox, I'd find another letter, each one nastier than the last. They even threatened to place a lien on my property. I gathered every permit, every inspection report, and even photos of the city inspector standing on my porch after it was built. I tried reason first, sending copies to the HOA board with a letter explaining that their claim had no legal standing. The response? Another fine notice. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about rules, it was about control. Greg wanted to make an example out of me, to show the rest of the neighborhood what happened if you dared to stand up to the board. My wife, normally the peacekeeper, finally snapped after the HOA mailed a letter suggesting they could take further action if we didn't comply. "They're threatening our home, Mark," she said, slamming the paper on the table. "This isn't about a porch anymore. They're bullying us." And she was right. It wasn't just about wood and paint, it was about the principle. I wasn't about to let a group of power-hungry neighbors decide what I could or couldn't build on property I legally owned. So I hired an attorney. The first time I walked into the lawyer's office with my stack of documents, he chuckled. "They really think they can override the city," he said, shaking his head. "This is textbook HOA overreach. And from what I see, they're in violation of state property law. You might just have a case for damages." I felt a spark of hope for the first time in weeks. We filed suit against the HOA, not only to stop the fines but also to seek compensation for the harassment and emotional stress they had caused my family. When the HOA was served the papers, Greg's smugness evaporated. He called me personally, his voice dripping with false politeness. "Now, Mark, there's no need to escalate things. If you'll just remove the porch, we can make this all go away." I nearly laughed. "No, Greg. You made this a fight. I'm just making sure it's a fair one." The court date was set. The HOA doubled down, sending out emails to the entire neighborhood claiming I was wasting community resources and endangering property values. Some neighbors sided with them, whispering when they walked past my house. Others quietly offered support, saying they'd faced the same bullying before. As the trial approached, my wife and I prepared for a showdown. The HOA wanted a war. They were about to get one. The trial stretched longer than anyone expected. The HOA's lawyer tried twisting words, calling my porch an illegal extension and painting me as a reckless homeowner who thought rules didn't apply to him. But my lawyer, Ms. Clark, was relentless. She brought in contractors, city officials, and even my neighbor who'd been on the HOA board years earlier. Piece by piece, she dismantled their case. When the city official held up the signed permit, confirming that the porch was entirely legal and inspected, the courtroom went quiet. Then Ms. Clark dropped the final bombshell. She revealed the HOA had been selectively targeting homeowners, approving porches for their friends, while trying to find those they disliked. She even had emails showing their bias. The judge leaned back in his chair, expression stone cold. Not only is Mr. Grayson's porch legal, he said, but this HOA has clearly abused its authority. The HOA president, red-faced, muttered under his breath, but it was too late. The judge's ruling came down swift and heavy. The HOA was ordered to pay me back every cent I'd spent fighting them. They were fined for harassment. And worst of all for them, they had to issue a public apology to me at the next community meeting. When that meeting day came, neighbors filled the room. The president, humiliated, read the apology out loud while avoiding my gaze. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Everyone knew their reign of bullying was over. Afterward, several neighbors approached me, shaking my hand, thanking me for standing up when they'd been too afraid. My porch, still standing tall and legal, had become a symbol in the neighborhood, a reminder that sometimes, the little guy can fight back and win. As I sat on that porch one evening, rocking in my chair with a cup of coffee, I couldn't help but smile. The HOA thought they could tear me down. Instead, they'd built me up stronger than ever, and paid damages to prove it.